The massive control room of the Galactic Council's containment division erupted into chaos. Red warning lights flashed across every screen as alerts blared through the speakers. The head monitor, Ted, nearly spilled his drink when the impossible happened. A ship from Earth had broken through the barrier. "This cannot be happening," he muttered, his four eyes blinking rapidly in sequence. No species from that death trap should have space travel capabilities yet. On his main screen, a sleek vessel pushed through the quantum barrier that had kept Earth isolated for centuries. The ship's design was surprisingly elegant for what the Council considered a primitive species. Its silver hull gleamed against the backdrop of stars, the words "Stellar Pioneer" painted proudly on its side. Inside the Pioneer's bridge, Captain James gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across his console, but the vessel held together. They had launched Earth's first faster-than-light test flight just hours ago, and something had gone terribly wrong with their calculations. "Engineering, report," James called out, keeping his voice steady despite the chaos. Anna's voice crackled through the comm. "Captain, the drive is stable, but we're getting strange readings. It's like we hit some kind of force field, but we're through it now." "Medical, any casualties?" "Just some bruises," Kate responded from the medical bay. "Though I'm more concerned about these bizarre energy readings we're picking up. They're unlike anything in our database." James nodded, though his crew couldn't see it. The Stellar Pioneer was humanity's greatest achievement, a ship designed to test the boundaries of space travel. Its crew of 50 represented the best Earth had to offer. None of them had expected their maiden voyage to go quite like this. "Sir," Marcus at security suddenly called out. Multiple contacts appearing on long-range sensors. They're not matching any known configurations. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as ships emerged from what appeared to be nowhere. Their designs were organic, almost artistic, nothing like the practical vessels Earth had theorized other civilizations might use. A message flashed across their communication screen in perfect English. "Attention Earth vessel. You have breached Containment Protocol 7249. Power down your engines and prepare for escort back to your designated zone." James felt a chill run down his spine. Containment Protocol. "Marcus, are you recording everything?" "Every bit, sir. Including some very interesting background transmissions they're not encrypting well enough." The alien ships surrounded the Pioneer in a perfect formation. Their hulls seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and strange patterns danced across their surfaces. "Sir," Anna called up from engineering, "you need to see these scans. The energy output from those ships, it's massive, but it's inefficient. Their tech is advanced. But," she paused, "I think we could do better with their resources." James allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had always thrived on finding efficient solutions to complex problems. It was how they'd survived their Deathworld, as these aliens seemed to consider it. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." The main screen lit up with an image that made several crew members gasp. The alien had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, skin that seemed to shimmer with bioluminescence, and an expression that somehow conveyed both fear and authority. "I am Diplomatic Envoy Reed of the Galactic Council." The alien spoke, its English unnaturally perfect. "Your species was not meant to achieve space flight for another 3 centuries. This is a severe breach of containment." James stood, straightening his uniform. "I am Captain James of the Earth ship Stellar Pioneer. And I believe we need to have a serious discussion about this containment you mentioned." In the background, Marcus quietly copied every bit of data streaming from the alien ship's open broadcasts. Kate prepared detailed biological scans of their visitors, and Anna studied their ship designs, already seeing dozens of ways to improve them. The humans had escaped their cage, and the galaxy would never be the same. The meeting room aboard the Galactic Council's diplomatic vessel felt strange to the human crew. The air was too sweet, the gravity too light, and the temperature uncomfortably warm. But none of them showed any signs of discomfort. Envoy Reed watched in horror as Captain James picked up a drink meant for the Lumini delegates and took a sip. "Stop. That liquid is highly toxic to most life forms." James looked at the purple drink in his hand and shrugged. "Tastes like grape juice with a kick. A bit strong, but not bad." Kate, the medical officer, pulled out her tablet. "Actually, this is fascinating. The drink contains compounds similar to what we'd consider alcohol mixed with some mild acids, nothing harmful to human biology." The aliens in the room moved back slightly. Reed's 4 eyes blinked rapidly again. "You mean to tell me your species can consume corrosive substances for pleasure?" "Earth foods often contain acids," Kate explained. "Citrus fruits, vinegar, carbonated drinks. They're quite normal for us. Would you like to see our standard food list?" When Kate displayed the list, several alien diplomats had to leave the room. The idea of a species eating plants and animals that produced natural toxins as defense mechanisms was too much for them. "Let me get this straight," Reed said, trying to maintain composure. "Your world has high gravity, extreme temperature variations, toxic plants, dangerous predators, and regular natural disasters. You forgot the best part," Anna added from where she was studying the room's environmental controls. "We evolved to not just survive it, but thrive in it. By the way, your life support systems are running at 60% efficiency. I could help you improve that." Marcus, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "We've been analyzing your data broadcasts. You've kept Earth isolated because you're afraid of us. Not of what we might do, but of what we can do." The room fell silent. Reed's skin changed color slightly. What the humans had learned was a sign of embarrassment among the Lumini. "You have to understand," Reed said finally. "Most civilized species evolved on worlds with stable conditions. Mild seasons, predictable weather, limited predators. When we first found Earth, we couldn't believe anything intelligent could evolve there." James leaned forward in his chair. "Yet here we are, and we didn't just survive. We built a ship that matches your technology level, despite your containment. The Council has protocols for this situation," Reed admitted, "but they all assumed the contained species would be aggressive, violent. He paused, searching for words. "Reasonable," James suggested. "Diplomatic. We're not here to fight. We're explorers. We want to learn, to trade, to be part of the galactic community." Kate's tablet beeped. She'd been running scans of their hosts the entire time. "Captain, you should see this. Their bone density, muscle mass, even their cellular structure. They're adapted for much easier conditions than we are. No wonder they're shocked by us." A junior alien diplomat, braver than the others, approached Kate. "You said you have regular disasters on Earth. How do you survive them?" "We prepare. We adapt. We help each other," Kate explained. "Every human culture has stories of surviving against the odds. It's part of who we are." James watched the aliens' reactions carefully. Fear was giving way to curiosity, at least among some of them. "Envoy Reed, instead of trying to contain us, why not work with us? There must be situations where our abilities could be useful to the Council." Reed's color shifted again, this time to what humans had learned meant deep thought. "The Council will need time to debate this, but," he looked at the human crew with all 4 eyes, "perhaps isolation isn't the answer we thought it was." Outside the meeting room's windows, the Stellar Pioneer floated among the alien ships. Its simple, practical design stood in stark contrast to their flowing, artistic shapes. But its presence marked the beginning of a change that would reshape the galaxy. The humans hadn't just survived their Deathworld. They had mastered it. And now, they were ready to show the galaxy what that meant. Marcus sat in the dimly lit data center of the Council's archive station, his eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. The Council had granted the humans limited access to their historical records as a show of good faith. They hadn't expected a human's definition of limited access to include hacking through 3 layers of security. "Captain," Marcus spoke quietly into his communicator, "you need to see this. The rabbit hole goes deep. An hour later, Captain James stood with his senior crew in the same room, looking at the files Marcus had discovered. The images and text on the screen told a story that made their blood run cold. They didn't just contain Earth, Kate said, her voice barely a whisper. There were others, so many others. The screens showed records of other Deathworld species. Some had evolved in high gravity, others under toxic atmospheres or extreme temperatures. All had been found by the Council. All had been contained, and many had been lost. Look at this one. Anna pointed to a file. The Forge Dwellers. They evolved on a volcanic world, built their first cities inside active volcanoes. The Council found them just as they discovered spaceflight. James read through the file. Current status: extinct. Official cause: natural disaster. His voice was hard. But look at the sealed notes. The Council destroyed their containment shields during a solar storm, blamed it on a technical failure. They're afraid of us, Marcus said, pulling up more files. Not just humans, but all Deathworld species, because we can do things they can't imagine. Live in conditions they consider impossible. Kate studied the biological data scrolling past. These species, each one had amazing adaptations. The Forge Dwellers could survive temperatures that would melt steel. The deep ones lived under crushing ocean pressures. All that potential, all that diversity, just erased. The room fell silent as more records filled the screens. Centuries of systematic containment and extinction, all in the name of galactic peace and stability. Sir, Anna spoke up, we need to tell Earth. Our people need to know what we're dealing with. James nodded slowly. But we need to be smart about this. The Council's watching us. They're probably watching Earth too. Marcus gestured to his computer. I found something else. Look at these power readings from supposedly empty sectors of space. They match the containment field that was around Earth. Other contained worlds, James said. Worlds that might still have living species on them, trapped like we were. Kate pulled up the medical data she'd been collecting on Council species. They're not evil, not exactly. Look at their biology. They evolved in perfect, stable conditions. The very concept of adapting to harsh conditions is alien to them. They literally can't understand how we think. Understanding isn't the issue anymore, James said firmly. They're committing genocide out of fear. We need to stop them. Anna had been quiet, studying the technical specifications of the containment fields. Captain, these barriers, they're not as strong as the Council thinks. They designed them to contain pre-space flight civilizations. But if a species really pushed their technology, like we did, Marcus added. Exactly. The barriers have weak points. If we could get this information to other contained worlds. James looked at each of his crew members in turn. They had come to test a space drive. Instead, they'd stumbled into a galactic conspiracy that had destroyed countless civilizations. We do this carefully, he said finally. Marcus, copy everything you can. Kate, keep studying their biology. We need to understand them to outthink them. Anna, learn everything about those barriers. He turned to look out the archives window at the glittering expanse of space. Somewhere out there, other species were trapped on their own death worlds, unaware that they weren't alone. The Council thought they could play God, James said quietly. They forgot that gods aren't the only ones who can change the universe. Anna wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked inside a maintenance tunnel on the Council's communication hub. The aliens kept their stations too warm for human comfort, but that was the least of her concerns right now. Her fingers moved quickly over the modified transmitter she'd built from spare parts. How much longer? Marcus's voice came through her earpiece. He was in the station's security center, looping camera feeds to hide her work. Almost there, she whispered. These alien systems are advanced but inefficient, like trying to crack a titanium safe with a glass hammer. The transmitter sparked to life, its signals piggybacking on the Council's own communication network. Anna smiled. They had just created the first link in what she called the underground stars, a hidden network connecting Earth with other contained worlds. Back on the Stellar Pioneer, Captain James sat in a tense meeting with Council security officials. They were asking questions about strange signals detected near Earth's sector. "I assure you," James said calmly, "our ship has remained within approved zones. Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning. We'd be happy to help check them." The lead security officer, a tall alien with crystalline skin, leaned forward. "Captain, we've contained species for thousands of years. We know when something's wrong." "Contained," James repeated the word slowly. "You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means." Before the officer could respond, alarms blared through the station. Red lights flashed as security feeds showed multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel nearby. "Sir," Marcus called through the comm, "we've got company. 3 ships just broke through the containment field around the volcanic world in Sector 7. The security officer's crystalline skin flickered in patterns of shock and anger. "Impossible. The Forge dwellers were eliminated." James raised an eyebrow. "Were they? Or did they just get better at hiding?" On the main view screen, 3 ships of unusual design appeared. They were dark and angular, built to withstand extreme conditions. Heat rippled off their hulls as they moved into formation alongside the Stellar Pioneer. "This is Commander Stone of the Forge Dwellers," a rough voice broadcasted on all frequencies. "We'd received the human's message. The time of hiding is over." The Council security team rushed from the room, shouting orders into their communicators. James allowed himself a small smile. Anna's voice came through his private channel. "Sir, the network is working. I'm picking up signals from 6 other contained worlds. They're all listening." "The Council's ships are powering weapons," Marcus reported. "But they're hesitating. They've never faced multiple Deathworld species working together." James stood and straightened his uniform. "Broadcast on all frequencies, Marcus. Let everyone hear." He cleared his throat. "This is Captain James of Earth. To all species trapped behind containment fields. You are not alone. The Council has kept us apart, fearing what we might become together. Today, that changes." The space around the station lit up as more ships appeared, vessels of all sizes and designs, each built by species who had survived the harshest conditions their worlds could offer. "Sir," Kate called from medical, "the Council species' vital signs are showing extreme stress. They literally can't handle this level of change to their orderly system." "They'll learn to adapt," James said, "just like we all did." The Council's military vessels moved into attack formation, but they were clearly outnumbered. Centuries of controlling lesser species had made them complacent. "All ships, hold position," James ordered. "We're not here for violence. We're here to end the containment of all species. The galaxy is big enough for all of us." Anna's network continued to spread, carrying the message to more hidden worlds. The Council's perfect system was breaking down, and in its place, something new was forming. An alliance of survivors, forged in the fires of the galaxy's harshest worlds. The emergency alert caught everyone by surprise. The Council's central world, Haven, was experiencing something it had never faced before. A natural disaster. A massive solar flare had damaged their atmospheric shields, and now their perfect paradise was burning. "They can't handle it," Kate said, looking at the readings from Haven's surface. "Their species never evolved to deal with extreme heat or radiation. They're dying down there." Captain James stood on the Pioneer's bridge, watching the chaos unfold on the main screen. Council ships hovered helplessly around their world, their crews unable to survive the conditions on the surface. "Sir," Marcus called out, "I'm receiving a distress signal from Haven's capital city. Their environmental systems are failing. They have millions trapped in underground shelters, but the air purifiers are shutting down." James pressed his comm button. "All hands, prepare for emergency rescue operations. This is what Earth trained us for." The Stellar Pioneer wasn't alone. The Forge Dweller ships moved into position alongside them, their crews already suited up. They had lived their entire lives in conditions far worse than this. "Anna, what's the status of the environmental suits?" James asked. "Modified and ready, Captain. The Council's suits were too weak, so I rebuilt them using our specs. We can handle the heat and radiation now." The rescue teams deployed to the surface in shuttles. Where Council species saw impossible conditions, the humans and Forge Dwellers saw just another tough day. They moved through the burning streets, their suits easily handling temperatures that would melt standard Council equipment. Kate coordinated from a mobile medical station. "These people have never experienced real trauma before. Their bodies don't know how to handle stress like this." "Then we'll handle it for them," James replied, carrying 2 unconscious Council members to safety. Around him, other humans and Forge Dwellers did the same. In the city's main environmental control center, Anna worked with a Forge Dweller engineer named Blast. Their hands moved quickly over alien controls, adapting systems designed for perfect conditions to handle disaster. "Your people built these systems with no backup plans," Blast growled, his voice rough from years of breathing volcanic air. "They never imagined anything could go wrong. That's why they need us," Anna replied, rerouting power to the air purifiers. "We plan for failure because we've lived it." Above the planet, Marcus coordinated with other Deathworld ships that had arrived to help. Species that the Council had feared and contained were now working together to save Council lives. "The radiation levels are still rising," one of the Council observers said, their voice shaking. "You'll die if you stay down there too long." James laughed as he led another group to safety. "We're from Earth. This is barely worse than a bad summer day in some places." Hour by hour, the rescue teams proved their worth. Humans carried survivors through heat that would kill Council species instantly. Forge Dwellers repaired systems in conditions that melted standard tools. Other Deathworld species arrived, each bringing their own unique survival skills. In the Council's emergency command center, Envoy Reed watched in amazement. "All this time," he said quietly, "we thought their harsh worlds made them dangerous. We never considered it made them stronger, better." By the time the crisis passed, the death toll was far lower than anyone had expected. The Council's perfect world had been saved by the very species they had tried to contain. "Perhaps," Reed said to James as the rescue teams returned, "we need to rethink our definition of civilized. Your people and the other Deathworlders, you didn't just survive. You came to help without hesitation." James looked at the tired but proud rescue teams, humans, Forge Dwellers, and other Deathworld species working side by side. "That's what surviving a harsh world teaches you," he said. "The strongest survive not by standing alone, but by standing together." The Stellar Pioneer hung in space near the Council's central containment facility. Around it, ships from a dozen different Deathworld species gathered. Each had broken free from their own containment, thanks to Anna's underground stars network. "All ships report ready, Captain," Marcus said from his security station. "Earth's fleet is in position. The Forge Dwellers are standing by. Even the deep ones have brought their entire battle group." James nodded, looking at the massive space station ahead of them. "This is where they control all the containment fields." "Anna, what did you find in the facility's plans?" Anna pulled up a holographic display. "The station's powered by 3 main reactors. They think it's unbeatable because no normal species could survive getting to them. The first is in a high radiation zone. The second is under crushing pressure. The third is in a chamber hot enough to melt standard metals. So they built their defenses assuming everyone's as weak as they are." James smiled. "That's why we brought friends." The plan was simple but bold. Teams from different Deathworld species would hit each reactor, using the very adaptations that had made the Council fear them. "Sir," Marcus called out, "incoming message from the station." The screen lit up showing a Council security commander. "This is your final warning. Return to your containment zones or face destruction." "You're not listening," James replied calmly. "We're not here to fight. We're here to free everyone you've trapped. Stand down, and no one needs to get hurt." The commander's response was to fire the station's weapons, but the Deathworlders were ready. Earth ships, designed to handle extreme forces, took the hits while launching their own attacks. Forge Dweller vessels moved through energy fields that would melt normal ships. The Deep One ships, built to handle ocean pressures, pushed through the station's gravity weapons like they were nothing. Inside the station, the real battle began. Human teams, led by Kate, moved through radiation-flooded corridors that killed Council security forces instantly. Their bodies, evolved on a world bathed in background radiation, barely noticed it. "First reactor secured," Kate reported. "These radiation levels are lower than what we got from that solar flare on Haven." In another section, Forge Dweller teams pushed through heat that melted the station's internal defenses. Their leader, Blast, laughed as Council weapons literally melted before reaching them. "Second reactor under our control," he growled happily. "They call this hot. My people cook food in hotter places." The Deep Ones, massive beings evolved under crushing oceanic pressures, handled the high-pressure zones like a walk in the park. Their bodies, built to survive depths that would crush Council ships, easily broke through the station's final defenses. "All reactors secured," Marcus reported. "But, sir, you need to see what we found in the central control room." James made his way to the heart of the station. There, displayed on massive screens, was the truth they'd been seeking. The Council hadn't just contained Deathworld species out of fear. They'd done it because of something else, something coming from deep space. "These readings," Anna said, studying the data, "they show something massive approaching the galaxy, something that lives in conditions even worse than our world's." And the Council's response was to contain the only species who might be able to fight it. James said, understanding dawning. "They were so afraid of us. They never considered we might be their only hope." The containment fields across the galaxy began falling one by one. Hundreds of species, evolved in the harshest conditions their worlds could offer, were finally free. "Sir," Marcus called out, "incoming transmission. It's from Haven. The Council. They're asking for a meeting, not to negotiate, but to apologize and to ask for our help." James looked at the data about the approaching threat. The Council species might not be able to handle extreme conditions, but they knew how to gather information, and what they'd found terrified them. "Tell them we'll meet," he said. "It's time they learned that the things they fear most might be the things they need most." 1 year after the breaking of the containment fields, the Council chamber looked very different. Where once only civilized species sat, now representatives from every world had a place. The smooth, artistic designs of Council architecture had been joined by the practical innovations of Deathworld engineering. Captain James, now Admiral James, stood at the speaker's platform. Around him sat delegates from 100 worlds. Some evolved in radiation zones, others in crushing gravity, some in toxic atmospheres. All of them once contained, now free. "The combined fleet is ready," he announced. "Every Deathworld species has contributed their strongest ships and best crews. The Council's scientists have confirmed the entity will reach our galaxy within 5 years." Kate, wearing the uniform of the new Deathworld Defense Force, brought up the latest scans. "The entity lives in conditions that would kill even us. Radiation 1,000 times worse than Earth's worst zones. Pressure that would crush a Deep One. Heat that would vaporize a Forge Dweller. And that's exactly why we'll win," Anna added. She had spent the past year combining Council technology with Deathworld innovation. Every harsh world taught its children something different. Together, we can survive anything. The Council's new leader, Reed, stood up. His species hadn't changed physically, but they had changed in other ways. They had learned to face their fears. "A year ago, we thought containing you was the only way to keep peace," he said. "We were wrong. Our fear of your strength almost doomed us all. On the massive screens around the chamber, ships of every design moved into formation. Council vessels, elegant and advanced, flew alongside the practical Earth ships. Forge-dweller dreadnoughts, built like moving mountains, protected sleek, Deep-One cruisers. Marcus, monitoring communications from his new position as Fleet Security Chief, smiled at the chatter between crews. Species that once feared each other now trained together, each learning from the other's strengths. The defense platforms are ready, he reported. Built to Council standards but upgraded with Deathworld durability. Even if the entity breaks through the fleet, it'll have to face those. James looked around the chamber. Humans sat next to Forge dwellers, their environmental suits allowing them to share the same space. Deep Ones had special tanks that let them attend while staying in their preferred pressure. Every species had found ways to work together. The containment fields taught us something important, he said. They showed us that isolation makes us weaker. But together, combining Council knowledge with Deathworld strength, we're ready for anything the universe throws at us. Anna brought up one final display, the new galactic map. The former containment zones were now thriving trade routes. Deathworld species helped Council worlds prepare for disasters. Council technology made harsh worlds more livable. We're picking up the entity's signal, Marcus announced. It's still years away, but it knows we're here. Let it come, Blast, the Forge Dweller commander growled. It'll find something it's never seen before, a galaxy united. James nodded. A year ago, the galaxy trembled when humans escaped their Deathworld. Now the galaxy stands together, ready to face whatever comes. Not because we're afraid, but because we've learned what every Deathworld teaches. Survival isn't about being the strongest alone. It's about being strong together. The chamber erupted in cheers, human voices mixing with the deep rumbles of Forge dwellers and the musical tones of Council species. Outside, the combined fleet continued its patrols, a symbol of how far they'd come. The Council had tried to contain what they feared. Instead, they'd helped forge an alliance that would save them all. As James looked at the stars through the chamber's window, he smiled. The galaxy had changed forever, and it had changed for the better. Somewhere out there, the entity was approaching, but it would find not a galaxy divided by fear, but one united by strength. The Deathworlders had escaped their cages, and in doing so, had taught the galaxy how to be truly strong.